Brought to you by...
When you dwell in the darker areas of cinema as much as I do, you tend to accept the idea that there are things out there beyond our understanding. Not because we are not intelligent enough to do so, but because our minds are not equipped to fathom their existence within our physical plane. There are entities that exist that will forever remain a mystery to us, whose influence bleeds into our reality more than we realize, and lures each of us toward the very breaking point of our sanity. Hello friends, and welcome back to ETF. As many of you know by now, cosmic horror is my favorite horror. In this realm, I tend to discover terrors beyond that of your normal film experience. I seek out as many of these as I can find, and stumble across a few from time to time that, while limited in scope, leave the doors open to horrific ideas that warrant further exploration. Recently, this was the case when I met James, a school teacher plagued by reoccurring nightmares, as he suspects that his visions are linked to a dark incident from his past. So he returns to his childhood home, a notorious mansion in Scotland, at which he uncovers the disturbing truth and finds himself at the mercy of the Lord of Tears. Opening in a harsh, rigid string of rough, hard cuts that make the film feel straight out of the 70s and showcasing a heavy grain overlay, I immediately found myself wishing that the shots had been longer and the cuts further between, to let the tension linger as we listen to the words of the attorney reading the will and the voiceover of the grandmother's final letter. These early sequences move far too fast for my taste, and I kept finding myself wishing for a more gradual build of tension, drawing out the moments over a longer period of time. It feels as though we are being rushed through the exposition as fast as possible in order to get our protagonist out to the old dark house and into the scares. The choice to cut away and take us back to moments in the past for very brief shots is an interesting way of storytelling that feels very much like something out of a Fulci film like The Beyond. The cinematography throughout the film is gorgeous, capturing the terrifying beauty of the locations as well as the lockdown and simple style of the period in which it's emulating. The house is introduced to us at a distance, masked by reaching branches of decaying trees in the foreground, foreshadowing the death that surrounds this place, which now stands as a mausoleum to James's haunted past. The lighting in the film is often flat and sometimes harsh, adding heavily to the 70s aesthetic for me. The color feels drained from much of the film. However, the color red is prominently used throughout various scenes, like in the candle burning at the edge of the frame, or the red dress that our mysterious young neighbor wears to dinner. A color that we later realize is being associated with Eve's character, foreshadowing the truth that is to be revealed about her later in the story. Much of the film is lit in warm tones, planting us into a soft and eerie comfort. Our protagonist seems to be a man who is returning home in the wake of grief, determined to find answers about a past that he cannot remember. As he begins to uncover more and more about the house that he thought he remembered from childhood, he begins to discover how much of his memory misleads him, as he unravels the mystery of the entity that haunts his past. Throughout the film, our protagonist records his thoughts regarding his discoveries and occurrences that he experiences, cataloging his findings for us to follow more fluidly. The performances aren't all that fantastic. They feel a bit unnatural throughout much of the film. However, this again just plays into the way acting felt in some of those lower budget films of the decade. I don't know how intentional it was, but in some scenes, the paintings on the walls feel as though they are watching over our protagonist, looming over him with their mysterious gaze like the shrouded past that he's trying to uncover. There are these bizarre moments throughout the film that feel almost mystical, like watching our raven-haired maiden dance, even at one point waving about a fireplace poker like a wand as she casts her feminine spell on our protagonist. We then move directly to a shot of a book about witchcraft, suggesting that perhaps the spell she casts is more than sensual. There's a slow yet horrid seduction that this film takes us through. Yet again, I wish the process had been slower. I kept feeling like I was watching the film on fast forward. I even checked a few times to make sure I didn't accidentally lean on the remote or something. At first I was under the assumption that the Owl Man was some sort of manifestation of our protagonist's mind, something that James had conjured up to bury the trauma of something horrific and unimaginable. However, the longer things began to build, the more toward the dark and Lovecraftian they began to turn. The more I watched, the more I began to realize how similar the structure mimicked the stuff of Lovecraft. We watch as James descends into a mystery that brings him toward the very edge of madness, encountering an entity that is beyond fathomable, its form only taking shape into something the mind can conceive. The whole film often feels built like a fever dream, like James is experiencing a waking nightmare, and we are just along for the ride. This film utilizes unique and haunting visuals, creating an ominous presence out of the strange owl creature. The choice to realize the entity in a physical costume adds a strange artistic eeriness to the piece that makes for an even more unsettling experience, in my opinion. If this were a film made with a larger budget and in a more grandiose fashion, it would definitely have been realized in CGI, and with much darker tones, that I think would have made it more appealing to wider audiences, but cheapened the experience. I feel like every visual choice, from the softness of the image and the 70s grain and camera style, to the jarring edits and often vibrant lighting, all crafts the aesthetic of this particular narrative, grounding us in the eeriness of this cosmic threat in which it showcases, and steeping us within an unease of insanity. James, like many protagonists of Lovecraft lore, is yet another pawn, manipulated and driven into the darkness from which he has no chance of escaping, by an elder god with malevolent intent. This is the type of haunting cosmic narrative that I love to explore, taking its intended audiences onto a journey through the deepest fathoms of the unconscious mind, and exploring the torment of a character's fractured psyche, as he is driven closer and closer to the brink of collapse. In the end, he is forced to reconcile with a past that had been lost to time. The horrors that he witnessed as a child placed before him as he uncovers the nightmares that led him back to this place, and burying them beneath the soiled earth where they belong, to finally bring a stolen innocence to rest. However, as with most of these cosmic terrors, the grasp of the elder gods is inescapable, and the only eternal certainty is the abyss. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider supporting ETF on Patreon. You don't have to give a lot, every little bit helps this channel grow and helps us bring you new content to enjoy. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you aren't already. Click that bell icon to be notified on all our future videos, and I will catch you all next time. Thanks for watching.